On the UAE, you might be like, why are these guys talking about UAE Tour so much? It's actually a more predictive race than you think. I went back and looked at it. So it's only been going on for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Every year but 2, last year and 2020, the winner has gone on to win a Grand Tour. Everybody, welcome back to the Move Plus. Apologies for the slight layoff last week. Johan and I are both recovering from sickness. You wouldn't have wanted to hear our voices. But before we get into a little bit of racing, some actual racing breakdown, we want to talk about today's sponsor, which is Maui Nui. It's the only source for Maui's exceptionally healthy, wild harvested access deer meat. Maui Nui's line of 100% wild harvested red meat is an extremely healthy option that delivers the highest protein to calorie ratio available, 53% more than grass-fed beef. Their sugar-free peppered sticks pack 10 grams of protein at just 55 calories and are loaded with essential nutrients, vitamins, and healthy fats. And they're the perfect snack to stay fueled in between meals or pre or post workout. I really like them for traveling. If I'm on a flight, I'm having a few Maui Nui venison sticks. I think it's much better than the other option, which would be ordering from the plane. They add a lot of quality protein to your diet, which I struggle to get enough of. And they're a good option for school lunches, which when you're packing those kids' lunches up, you want to make sure you're getting enough protein in there. They're very picky, but the kids love Maui Nui's venison sticks. And one of the best parts of ordering from Maui Nui is that not only are you getting healthy, delicious, and ethical meat delivered directly to your door, but you're playing a key role in their mission to reclaim abundant food systems and preserve the delicate native ecosystems on the island of Maui. As a former resident of the island, this product means a lot to me since I know firsthand, just how difficult it is to source food from the Hawaiian Islands. When you live there, pretty much everything you buy is imported in. So it's fantastic that they're trying to create a food source that's based on the island. And it's the overpopulation of the axis deer is a massive problem. Like I would never see them when I rode 15 years ago. And if I went on a ride earlier this month, actually, and saw a ton of axis deer. So they are working to get those populations down to a healthy level and to keep both the ecosystem and the people safe, because when you're driving around at night, it can be a problem with those deer running around. If this sounds interesting to you, Maui Nui offers the Move Plus listeners a limited collection of their favorite cuts and products, but supply is limited by the nature of their work. So don't wait. Check it out now at MauiNuiVenison.com/Move Plus, not the Move Plus, but Move Plus spelled out MOVEPLUS. That's MauiNuiVenison.com/Move Plus spelled out. All right, Johan, let's get into the show. We've had a bunch of races recently. Just today, we had the UAE Tour Stage 1 World Tour race, first World Tour race since the Tour Down Under last month. Jonathan Milan won the sprint. Tadej Pogačar was contesting the sprint, which was a little surprising. I was impressed, but then even more surprising as he was trying to break the race up with like 40K to go. He was up on the front, taking poles in the crosswinds on the hills. I assume just trying to drop the sprinters so he could go for the stage win. We also had Clásica Jaén today. I think that's in Andalusia. It was like maybe the most olive trees I've ever seen in my life. Michał Kwiatkowski won for Ineos, giving them their first European Pro win of the year. Some heavy hitters there, some strange tactics behind that we'll talk about. We also had Tour de la Provence over the weekend that Mads Pedersen won for the second year in a row. Some dodgy road furniture, questionable decisions, and then your guy, Anthony Morgado, won the Figueira Champions Classic over the weekend, and second place went to Paul Magnier from Soudal Quickstep. Those are both young riders that you called out in the Up and Comers show earlier this month, or was that late last month? But to give you something to respond to, Johan, what did you think of this opening stage of the UAE Tour? Jonathan, like there was serious sprinters here.
Yeah.
It was a tough finish that helped him, but he looked pretty dominant against guys like Jasper Philipsen.
It was impressive. We already saw, in Valenciana, Tour of Valencia, he won, I think one one stage, two stages?
He won 2 stages technically, but one was a team time trial.
Okay, good. Well, anyways, he won the last stage very dominantly, and then he was impressive on a really hard uphill finish, which was won by Santiago Buitrago, a pure climber, and he was second in that stage. I think the last kilometer was like 6-7%. So today it was a really hard sprint. The way he won, I mean, I saw a video somewhere of his power output in the last 500-600 meters. It's impressive. And he had Philipsen in his wheel. Philipsen came next to him, and then finally Philipsen had to sit down, and Milan could still stand up. So. Listen, I think he's going to be the dominant force in the years to come in sprints. You know, this guy has an amazing potential. Let's not forget, you know, that he's the world champion 4-kilometer pursuit. You know, I mean, you have to be a lot more than a sprinter to be able to win that event. On top of that, he broke the world record. He's the fastest man in the world over 4 kilometers. So, you know, if it's not for pure climbers, I think Milan can win pretty much any sprint nowadays. On top of that, I think we have to really point out, since the season has started, but, you know, especially now also around Milan, Little Trek is on a roll. They are super well organized. They're dominant, in their lead outs. Same with Mats Pedersen, around Mats Pedersen. But Milan has really, you know, demanded his place there as probably the top sprinter of the team. The proof is that the team has already announced that Pedersen does not go to the Tour and Milan does. And so, yeah, I mean, that victory today was impressive. There's a lot of good sprinters. You know, Merlier is there. Is Groenewegen there? Groenewegen is there, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Olaf Koy was there and got dropped. Like that's how impressive
Milan
it was hard.
is. I mean, Merlier was not even in the picture. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he had the mechanical or something, but anyway, he beats Jasper Philipsen, right? So there's no many sprinters that are faster than Philipsen. Philipsen went for it full gas and was beaten fair and square. So it just proves that, you know, he already showed in Valencia that he was super strong, but this is World Tour level, and I'm expecting a lot of victories from Milan, and most likely also at least one stage win, if not more, in the Tour.
The impressive thing about Milan is, you know, I hesitate because I almost said 2024 was the first season he really focused on the road, but even then he went to the Olympics on the track. Mm-hmm. Like really 23 was his first full road season. He gets better. I feel like every race we see him, he's better than the race before. He's 24 years old, so he's not super young, but he's kind of just learning how the road works. I don't think because of that, I don't think he'll win Milano Sanremo this year because it is such a finesse event to be positioned. But I will say, we rewatched Ghent-Wevelgem 2024. In that 1-2 punch of Mads Pedersen, Jonathan Milan, like that, they really worked over Van der Poel at that race. If those guys are both better this year and Little Trek's looking this good, I'm kind of curious to see what the classics look like with these two guys. Like that. I mean,
listen, Little Trek they've done a good job on the transfer market also in the off season, and you know you can clearly see that since Little has come in, their aim is to be a super team, right? There's a huge budget now, and they're really living up to the expectation. They've become one of the three. I mean, you would say there's 4 big teams, and it's 4 super big teams, and Little Trek is one of them. You have UAE, Visma, Red Bull, and Little Trek. I think those are the 4 biggest teams.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of like the thinking man super team too. They don't have probably the best rider for rider talent, but it's like they get people right below who could be up there, but they're not there yet. And they kind of develop in, like, who was talking about Jonathan Milan in 2022? Yeah. You know, like he was on Bahrain and no one never heard about him. And then Little Trek picked him up. Couple interesting things about the stage. I don't want to talk about Pogačar too much because we're going to be talking about him all season long. But he looked like he was having fun, like messing with people. I would be worried.
It looks like it's a game for him. I mean, even before the UAE, we know he went to recon the Tour of Flanders, and then he posts a video of him, on the Arenberg Forest, and lets everybody guess, well, will he do Paris-Roubaix? Because he looked amazing on the Arenberg Forest in the recon. Turns out that I'm pretty sure he won't. He won't do it, but he was there with Tim Wellens, and Tim Wellens, the day after the Flanders recon, wanted to go to see a few sections of Roubaix, and so they just tagged along, He just...
I don't know. Like, Service Knaven had a good point. He's like, it's pretty intentional to go... You're going to you would not say like the best place you could ride this time of year, but I don't know. Let's say he wins Flanders. Do you think we're going to is he going to be like, I don't know, is he going to do Roubaix? Like, is he leaving the door open here a little bit? And then, maybe he gets to check out some key sections.
I mean, you don't know with him. You really don't know. I'm not excluding it, but it's not the plan. It's not the plan. And personally, I think it would be, I mean, listen, of course, I have traditional thoughts about the program, and, okay, he does focus on the classics. That's already like unusual for a rider who wants to win the Tour. But anyway, Pogačar has shown that he can win basically all the races in the season. So why not? But if you focus, if the Tour, I think for him, the Tour and the World Championships will be again his main goals, especially because the Worlds are even harder than last year. Having the World Championships jersey back to back would be also amazing for him, I think. So I personally don't see him at the start of Paris-Roubaix, because let's not forget, okay, he is a great bike rider, but the chances that you have a crash and that it's a bad crash are pretty big. I mean, it's not like you're not alone in this. There's a lot of people who want to be in front at the first cobble section. Something can happen. You don't even have to make a mistake. People just ride it. They just ride into you,
Well, I'd say that'd be a problem for most people, but he won't even be in the peloton. Well, he'll solve that problem by just attacking before they even get to
you. Are in the peloton. At some point you are, So yeah, I mean, no, I mean, we don't know, but I think it was more a publicity stunt, and let's say, hey guys, watch out, or I'm coming to play on your playground.
Yeah, I agree. It would be quite aggressive to do. I actually wrote about this in my newsletter on Friday. I don't think we've mentioned this. I just realized we hadn't talked. If you are a WeDo member, you can read my members only newsletter. We'll put how to be a WeDo member in the show notes, and then you can sign up and you can find all the information out after you do that. And if you're a member and you want to read it and you don't know how to, just email info@wedo.team. But I brought up Pogačar to say this, Johan. Great day, looks great. He's on these funky new bikes that my theory is the team doesn't like them. Like, what? So they haven't raced them all year, and then suddenly they're at their home race and they're on their new bikes that are also based in Abu Dhabi.
Well, yes.
Are these things too heavy?
Yes and no. I think yes and no, Spencer. I can understand that they didn't bring them to UAE to down under. It's a big logistical operation to bring these bikes over there. It really makes no sense. There's not been that many flat races yet, so of course, listen, Colnago is now owned by their boss. They've put a lot of investment into the launch of this new bike, and whenever they can ride it in UAE, they're going to ride it.
Yeah,
they have to be on their best behavior on all levels.
Definitely have that feeling. Yeah, like everyone get the new bikes out. Make sure you wash them. We got to impress the boss. I'm curious how much we see this bike throughout the year.
We'll see.
It looks heavy. I would like to actually get my hands on one to see what it actually weighs. But he lost time to a GC contender, Finn Fisher Black, his former teammate, now on Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. after Philipsen's up, he's wilding out. Like that he's feeling himself a little bit. He was weaving all over the place. They relegated him. He's got to be the most.
Relegated him finally. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he's got to start right in a straight line in these sprints.
Yeah,
but
it was really unintentional. I mean, I saw the wave. He was full gas until he was dead. Then he sat down and looked back, and while he was looking back, he just it was a big wave. It was a big wave, but it was,
he probably was just done.
He was dead.
Yeah. So Fisher Black gets a 6-second time bonus. If you remember last year, Leonard Van Etveld won this race, I believe, last year with like a second difference.
Thanks to the bonification he took in one of the breakaways.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
That was an incredible final stage.
But Spencer, Tadej Pogačar was on the
I try to make this interesting.
But it's not the same.
I did think it was interesting. It looked fantastic when he was going for the sprint, but just if you look at the facts, actually Finn Fisher Black played that finale way better. I kind of wonder if Pogačar could have won had he waited, because Milan was sprinting for felt like half a minute. He was out there forever.
Pogačar was the last lead out man from Milan.
He couldn't have won it without him. It was key. You on the UAE, you might be like, why are these guys talking about UAE Tour so much? It's actually a more predictive race than you think. I went back and looked at it. So it's only been going on for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Every year but 2, last year and 2020, the winner has gone on to win a Grand Tour. So you'd think, wow, this is really early. You can't tell anything. Actually, is more predictive. And I mean, this is something we'll talk about when we get to Jaén, but I feel like our old minds think, well, this is early. We can't take anything from it. But in modern cycling, it is like how you start the season is kind of how you are for the rest of the year. Geraint Thomas is one of the only riders that can get dropped every race he starts for 2 months and then snap into shape when he needs to be.
Yeah. Or you when you're injured or sick or something, you start a bit behind. But I mean, these guys are on a really super high level the whole year round now. I mean, and also we have to mention also, Spencer, they don't race a lot. So whenever they race, they want to be top.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Pogačar has been preparing for this for a long time. On to the next one I want to talk about, Clásica Jaén for this evening, if you're in Europe. Super interesting race. Like mixed surface. I think it's only the 4th time it's happened in the
it's a relatively new race. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit, it's what we call it like the Spanish version of Strade Bianche, but obviously not the same distance, not the same field. Only 90 riders at the start. So that's not very good. But there were some really good riders there. So, I mean, to win it, you have to be in shape. You've watched, I just saw the last 10K, but you've watched a bit more. So tell me, what did you see? I saw a lot of Ineos and a lot of UAE in front.
Yes. Yeah. Essentially, that's what I was going to say. But Adam Blythe, I thought it was maybe one of the best like color commentating performances I've ever heard in a bike race. He was A, really angry, and B, like saying exactly what everyone was doing wrong in a way that was easy to understand. But you had after I think it was about 70K to go, a 3-rider groups up the road with Kwiatkowski, who would go on to win the race. It was Brandon McNulty from UAE, and then a guy I'd never heard of, Iban Ruiz from Equipo Confarma. If that sounds familiar, that's the small Spanish team that won 2 stages at the Vuelta last year.
3 stages.
3 stages, my Lord. So he gets caught. He's in the early move. He gets caught by Kwiatkowski and McNulty. They're off the front. Strong group, you'd say. But Ineos had 4 other riders behind. Mm-hmm. UAE had 4 other riders behind. And they were trying to like bridge across. Egan Bernal was doing an amazing job of like marking moves, of just sitting on them. But I started to wonder, and Blythe was losing his mind on this. Why not bridge up with like 2 other riders? Because if you're UAE, Brandon McNulty's not winning that. He cannot beat Kwiatkowski in a sprint. So you probably need another rider up there if you want to win. they're just shutting everything down. They're not pulling. Ineos does the same. It works out for them. They win the race. But McNulty then flats. Yeah. And now they have nothing. And then they have to respond. Del Toro, the riders they had up there in the chase group, by the way, were Tim Wellens, Isaac Del Toro, Igor Arrieta, really young, really good young Spanish rider, and then Marc Soler. So all very good riders. Like they could have done some damage in that front group with those guys.
They also had a very. We didn't talk about this this guy in the up and comers. Remember this name, Spencer? 18 years old, Adria Pericas. I think
on UAE.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think he was there, and then he dropped back.
I see him a little bit.
But he was top 10 last week also somewhere. He was the Spanish junior champion last year and turned pro straight away.
And Del Toro takes off, gets second, super impressive ride, couldn't catch Kwiatkowski, finishes 31 seconds behind him. Blythe's theory was these teams, Ineos and UAE, have stage racing mind. Their stage racing minds turned on. Like they don't want to pull another leader up to the front because they have a rider up there. But in a one-day race, if you have a 3-rider group and you have a rider in it, if they can't win the sprint, should they have basically chased down their own rider to get more riders up there?
It's a difficult one, I mean, who knows? I mean, listen, McNulty's not. I mean, he's a strong rider. I mean, and it's a hard race. Maybe they were hoping that he could drop Kwiatkowski. Kwiatkowski is, obviously hard to drop, but and those kind of climbs. But
not a great
bet. A lot of confidence in McNulty and then, I mean, if you try to bring it back, you bring other guys back too. If you have 1 out of 3, or you have 2 out of 8, it's difficult. It's difficult. But you're right. I mean, these are teams. They're not really used to ride one-day races and make decisions based on. You have to decide fast. Yeah, it's completely different than a stage race.
I thought it was an interesting example of, as a casual viewer, you wouldn't ever think about it, but these ethoses get sewn into the fabric of your team. And Soudal Quick-Step struggled for a long time because they are so good at those fast decisions. We're not so good at stage racing. They've gotten better at it, oddly gotten worse at the one days. But it did make me realize UAE's one-day strategy is so often, Pogačar will ride away. We'll make it hard and he rides away. And then they can look like they flounder at times when he's not there. They just kind of lose that form, even though all the riders are really good. Yeah.
Well, they've won a few. UAE, for example, they won a few nice one-day races already. Ineos a bit less, I would say, but hey, I mean, it's not like they don't have that many. I mean, you could have said, look, for example, if you're Adam Blythe, and you look at it, I would say, okay, well, our best chances here are to win with Axel Laurence because he's fast, right? And he was up there.
Yeah.
But then you see when he gets to the finish, he can hardly get to the finish, and he could not even beat the guy he was with, who was pulling. So he's completely dead, So you never know what's happening with the legs in the final of a race,
And yeah, that's true. It's interesting that Kwiatkowski, Ineos gets a win. I'm calling it their first pro win of the year. I don't recognize national championships as pro wins because it's like Bruyneel was amazing. Bruyneel also crashed, broke his collarbone.
Yeah, well,
at the end of the race.
Speak about that. I mean, Bruyneel looked amazing. I mean, I watched the road race Colombian championships. He was incredibly strong. Even if it was only in Colombia, but you have to be really strong. It was super hard. Today, I thought he looked very, very strong. Probably one of the strongest guys of that group. And then all of a sudden, we don't see him anymore. Turns out there was a crash and he broke his collarbone. I mean, how much bad luck can you have? This guy was really on a high, like first time in his pro career, he has the Colombian jersey, the national jersey. Proud to show it off, of course. His first race looked really strong. So you could say, well, he's going to have a really good beginning of the season. It's good for his confidence, and he's going to make another step forward during the season, right? And unfortunately, listen, it's not good, but fortunately, it's only a collarbone. It's not.
That's true. It's really straightforward.
But it's definitely, really unfortunate for him.
I mean, he was jumping between groups at will.
And he looked really solid. He looked very strong, powerful.
Well, who didn't look strong? And I know what you're going to say, but I'm worried. Wout van Aert.
Don't be worried.
He had to switch on the fly from being their leader to then taking polls because he couldn't respond to his own teammate, Ben Tollett, then became the leader. I shouldn't be worried. I don't know. Why is the form not there?
No, no. He's going to be fine. It's, I don't know if, he just comes off a training camp in Mallorca now. I don't know how they trained. I'm not worried. I mean, you would expect him to be one of the favorites, of course, but hey, these guys are not machines, but I'm not worried at all. I mean, you can't draw conclusions, Spencer, based on that first race. Who knows what was? I mean, maybe he had a bad night, or okay, I'm being the Wout van Aert Belgian defender, right? But I don't know. I think he's in good shape. He's going to be in good shape in the spring.
I will say Visma, they do. You mentioned training camp. They do have this odd. They clearly know more about training than I do, but it's a funny habit where sometimes they come out of training camps and everyone's terrible. Do you remember the Giro in 2022, I believe? They did some altitude camp and they were all awful at the Giro. And maybe they're just trying new things. Maybe they push things to such a limit that they go over, and then you're super fatigued when you come out of the camp. But it is something that
come from altitude. He was in Mallorca the weeks before. They have a bunch of riders on the Teide now in Tenerife, but Van Aert is not there. Van Aert was in Mallorca training.
Interesting. I know Nielsen Palace has talked about how their methods didn't really work for him, but it just I don't. And other teams like they come out of camps looking tired too. But Visma, it is something to keep an eye on. It's kind of a funny trend, and like at the Giro last year, where they can look so dominant and then so rudderless at times. And it's hard to figure out exactly why that's happening. I'm very curious to see. I mean, Mathieu van der Poel, do we even know where he is? Is he skiing still? But
no, he's not skiing anymore. He's back. I mean, I think he went for a week. So, I don't know what's his first race?
He has an odd schedule. It's, it's like this thing last year where you're like, we haven't seen Van der Poel. And then he shows up and just starts winning monuments without doing any races.
Like 1 year, his first race was Milan-San Remo, I guess.
So his first race this year, a little bit different. It's Tirreno and then San Remo.
Okay.
And then E3 and then Flanders. But that is kind of funny because Flanders is only his fourth race of the season. But it clearly works for him. But I'm curious to see how these guys that look so good right now, like what they look like at Flanders, because we're seeing some people look like they're on an extremely high level.
Well,
also interesting that Ineos...
Normally, Spencer, I mean, back in the days, I mean, but there's still, Flanders is still, what is it? Like, it's this, what is it? The 6th of April,
April
I guess?
6th, yeah.
It's still quite a bit away,
It's definitely quite a bit away, but I mean, maybe this should be in the question section. Does that matter anymore?
It's almost 50 days.
I feel like in modern cycling, though, do you feel like people are ever even improving? I guess Pogačar got better from the Giro to the Tour. He did go up a level, but it almost feels like everyone's on this super high level at the start, and then that's where you are for the rest of the year. You rarely see variance in form anymore.
Yeah, but the people who peak towards the classics are not the classics, meaning like Flanders and Roubaix. Now they're not in top shape yet.
What is top shape? Like, do they just have like more work? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I'm so confused by this modern. Like, do you think Jonathan Milan is in top shape right now, or does he have another level to go to?
No, he's not in top shape yet. No.
Interesting.
He's going to be stronger.
Adam Yates won the Tour of Oman overall. Didn't actually, he didn't look that great, but he said, I'm actually not in shape yet. So that was pretty good that you won the Tour of Oman against some pretty good riders.
Without being in shape. Valentin Parapantra second in the GC, David Gaudu third. Gaudu did he won that first uphill finish. He was really impressive there. But yeah, I mean, Adam Yates is obviously the best of those three guys. So only that he wins. But yeah, I mean, in the case of Adam Yates, if you're not in top shape and then these other guys are already super, super sharp, it's not easy to win those races. They're hard. These are hard finishes.
Perry Pantra, I couldn't tell if this was a real quote or what, but he said basically he targeted this race and got in top shape for it because he knows that he's not good enough to win like the best races against the best riders at the best shape, but he can like poach. I mean, the guy won a Giro stage last year, so obviously he can win very good races, but kind of seemed like he poached us, almost won the overall. Like he exploded away from Yates on the final uphill finish. He needed 6 more seconds. Like he borderline looked like he could have got it if he would have gone earlier. But David Gaudu, you said wins the stage 3 summit finish, dropped on stage 5. Mm-hmm. I was a little surprised. Like
it's not uncommon. Gaudu, he has a lot of ups and downs. I mean,
that's true.
He's amazing, and then like in the Tour, sometimes he just one day he just loses 15 minutes.
I thought they said that he's going to the Tour for stage wins, which I guess would make sense if you're not consistent. But then sometimes he is pretty consistent. Like I'm looking at the Vuelta last year, 6th.
Yeah, he was 5th in the Tour one year too, I think.
Yeah, and then it felt like there was a lot of pressure from that. I'm trying to find that year. So he's 4th in 2022.
Okay.
And then he's not been as consistent at the Tour since then.
Yeah. But he's a big talent, he has a huge engine. Just not consistent enough.
Yeah, he's really good rider. I don't know if we need to talk that much about the Figura Champions Classic, but Antonio Morgado, I'm just going to mention it because he attacked Filippo Ganna was off the front. Very good rider, like one of the biggest engines in the sport. He gets caught on a climb. Looks like Morgado attacks. Ganna looked like he was going in reverse. Like that's how fast Morgado was going. And you knew he was going to stay away within 20 seconds, holds the group off, wins by 4 or 5 seconds.
He's been very strong. He's been very strong already. Isn't this his third win or his second win
of the season?
Yeah,
it is his second win, but it's his 4th podium and 5th top 6. Yeah. The guy's super powerful. I mean, I do remember, Spencer, you mentioned it earlier on that when we were talking about the up and comers, Morgado and Paul Magnier, we mentioned them last year as the guys to watch, and they were there. But I had information from in the off season that they are super strong and they went up another level. And both of them, Morgado has top 3 places all the time. Won 2 races already. Magnier won at least 1 race, I guess. And then, 1 race, and he won 1st, 1 second, 1 third. And this is just the beginning of what we're going to see of those 2 riders. They're the guys that we'll be talking about them a lot. Really, too. I mean, not, but they're Magnier is a pure sprinter, but also can win a hard sprint, like today, for example, in UAE. And then Morgado is just pure power. He's all over the bike, but the power this guy has is incredible. It's really incredible. I mean, it got overshadowed because the performance from Van der Poel was so amazing, but he got 5th at the Tour of Flanders last year as a recent legit just turned 20, I believe. Yeah, that's not every day that happens. That guy's definitely.
And on top of that, he said in one of the races that he was in front because he was in front of in all those semi-classics also. I remember Belgian TV interviewed him after one of those races and he said, I don't really like these races, but the team makes me do them.
Yeah, contrast that to like George Hincapie, who made like his whole life was the Spring Classics. It's like he like built his whole life around it so he could be familiar with them. And Morgado, I don't even want to be here, but I guess I could win it. maybe. Yeah. I do kind of wonder, like, how many talented youngsters like this can that team add before it becomes too many?
Well, it's inevitably some of those guys are going to want to break free at some point. We already saw, Finn Fisher-Black leaving. So everybody wants to go there because it's obviously the team everybody wants to be on. They have, they pay huge contracts. But, after 2-3 years, they also see, well, okay, I've improved a lot, but I really want to have my own chance. And inevitably, some people are gonna leave. Morgado may be one of them. We'll see.
Yeah, I do. Morgado's very good. I don't think this guy, I think he probably will leave because he can't be behind Pogačar forever. Yeah. They are different ages, so maybe that timeline could work out. But sometimes being the second fiddle is good. Like, think of João Almeida at Valenciana recently. Like, when he gets the reins, he looks fantastic when he's helping you. Like the Tour last year, it's like, yeah, João Almeida, like, could he win a Grand Tour? And then you watch this race where he had the lead and it just like got shaken loose by Buitrago on a.
Yeah, but I have to. Okay, but he was good. He was good, Almeida. But you have to say, Buitrago was outstanding. He was the best by far. There's no discussion. These races are kind of won with small differences, and he won. I don't know how many seconds it was at the end, but Buitrago was just the strongest, no discussion. He was not going to lose that race.
Well, he lost something like 20 seconds in the team time trial, and then just took it back methodically. Yeah. He was in control of that race. I thought, Bruyneel won the double national championships the same weekend. I thought, I don't even know if Bruynel's the best Colombian this weekend. Like, that's how good Buitrago looked. He looked incredible. But let's take a quick break for our sponsor, Johan, and then we're going to talk about what you got up to this weekend. Hey, everybody, this episode is brought to you by Hims. Hims wants you to know if you've lost your hair, it doesn't mean you can't find it again. Try Hims Hair Loss Solutions, and you'll be joining hundreds of thousands of subscribers who have found their hair again. Everyone knows it can be hard for men to talk and deal with hair loss, even though it's common. Luckily, I'm here to provide you with the solution so you don't even have to talk about it. Through Hims, you can restore your hair by accessing their personalized hair loss solutions. Many men value many different things about their appearances, but if you're a guy who really cares about your hair and really has great hair and find that it's slowly going away, talk about stressful, by the way. Holy smokes, you're looking down in the shower, you're seeing more and more hair every day in the drain. I'm living that life right now. And you might be feeling discouraged when you look in the mirror. And that's where Hims comes in. Check out their personalized hair loss solutions, and you can start seeing your hair grow back in as little as 3 to 6 months, which is really shocking. All you have to do is go on to their website, answer a few questions, and a medical provider will determine if the treatment is right for you. And if prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. No insurance is needed. Just one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, and they can help you get your confidence back with visibly thicker and fuller hair. If this sounds interesting, start your free online visit today at hims.com/themove. That's HIMS.com/themove for your personalized hair loss treatment options. Again, hims.com/themove. Results vary. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Some restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. All right, back to the show. So, Johan, the Tour de la Provence, we don't have to break down what happened here. Mats Pedersen lost the opening sprint and said, I got to figure something else out. And then he attacked at will on stage 2, got away with Tadej Mohoric. Pretty impressive that he just game planned that out. Got enough time, wins a stage against Mohoric of the sprint, and then wins the overall. But on the final stage, stage 3, going into the high-speed sprint finish, little speed bump, probably about 100 meters, 50 meters before the finish line. Pascal Ackermann, leaves the ground, crashes, super dangerous for him and everyone around him. Then you tweet about, basically, there's a tweet from Pro Cycling Stats tagging you. You respond. Seems like you guys are both in agreement that this is like unacceptable. Like,
well, if you look at, I mean, this is just one incident, and it's a smaller race, but Tour de la Provence seems, and then I checked a little bit their organization and all the staff they have. They have decent resources, So I'm just going to read out my response to, because Pro Cycling Stats asked for my opinion. Pro Cycling Stats said, "Are you serious? A speed bump just before the finish? What's your opinion?" Adam Hansen, David Lapartien, Johan Bruyneel, Richard Plugge. I just came back from an event I had in in the Netherlands, like a cycling talk show with Johan Museeuw and with Dirk de Mol and Nico Matan. And so I came back. I watched. I think I actually watched the finish on my way to the airport. I don't remember, but I felt inspired to respond. And I said, "What's my opinion on this? A speed bump in the last stretch, so close to the finish line, should never be allowed, ever. We have to ask ourselves the question, who designs these courses? This isn't rocket science. Depending on the profile, these courses have a reasonably predictable outcome. In this case, there's a high probability for a bunch sprint, so a speed bump in the last few meters is almost a guaranteed disaster. So the first question really is, who designs the course? The next question is, who approves the course? I realize it's not as simple of a process as you might think, but ultimately for me, the big problem lies with the UCI. Their president, David Lapartien, keeps pushing the news that rider safety is one of their priorities. But whenever he has the opportunity, he blames the riders' behavior for crashes and accidents. Sometimes that's true, but many, many times there are circumstances that can be avoided, like today. Lapartien also keeps boasting about SAFE-R, which is some kind of instrument they have now installed for the safety. It's what he calls an external and independent entity responsible for analyzing the safety situations and making recommendations for improvements. I just want to take the opportunity here to remind everyone, including Lapartien himself, that SAFE-R was initially an initiative of the teams. The teams came up with an idea of contracting an external and really independent organization which was supposed to study situations and work on the improvements for rider safety. It's my understanding that Lapartien has listened to the team's proposals, but, and this happens often with sporting federations, turned it into his idea and forced the teams to let the UCI do the talking. Now, SAFE-R is working directly for the UCI and not for the teams and the riders. It is absolutely not independent, and their reports are monitored and published by the UCI. What the UCI does is usually punish either riders, directors, or organizers for incidents in races. They prefer to punish small organizations. They will never punish, for example, ASO, even if sometimes the Tour de France, there are courses or finish stretches which could be a lot safer. Then I asked the question to Richard Plugge, who was at the initiative of SAFE-R, since he was the president of the teams union. Richard Plugge, or any team manager, tell me if I'm wrong. I realize I may have missed some details along the way about this creation of SAFE-R, but I don't think I'm far off. So I'm not saying by this that this is a problem initially, that the UCI has created this problem, but I think that the whole system that is in place for safety is wrong and should be improved. And it's very simple things. For example, if you look at the situation in Tour de Provence, this particular stage, right? But any race and any course, the rules clearly state that every organizer has to designate on beforehand a person responsible for the security and safety. They call it the safety manager or safety and security manager. I looked into Tour de Provence because we were discussing about this on social media. There is a designated person. I forgot his name now. It's definitely not the next professional, or it's somebody within the organization. I think it would be very simple to make it mandatory that every single organizer needs to, it's mandatory, have a recently retired ex-professional cyclist in charge or assisting and advising this safety manager. These courses need to be inspected by this kind of person, like somebody who was just there, who knows the real dangers, who can see things that other people don't see. Now, in my opinion, everybody should see that the speed bump should not be in the last 100 meters.
Yeah, I don't know if that takes an ex-professional.
But and then if you look, for example, Tour de la Provence, you look at the whole first page in the race book. There's about 100 staff. I mean, impressive organization. And you see that the spokesperson for the race is nobody less than Thomas Voeckler, who is also actually the national coach for French cycling. Why don't they take him to the 4 stages and at least let him give his opinion about the finishes? You can do this the day before and say, okay, this is not possible, and this is an issue. As I said in my tweet, it's not always as simple as I put it. It's also difficult to change the finish line a day before the race, but this should not be things that happen the day before the race. This has to be, first of all, designed. Then it needs to be scouted by somebody who is, has experience in the matter. And then, a few weeks before the race, it needs to be revisited. And I don't know. I mean, I have no information, but I doubt that all the races are scouting the course close to the event. I don't know if that always happens. Anyway, this was just one event, one incident. It could be avoided. There's many. There's many. We talk about it because something happens, right? But there's many incidents where nothing happens, but it could happen, and it could be so much better. So I blame the UCI for not putting into place a system that, and you can always improve on systems, but what's for sure is that the initiative that the teams wanted to install, because they are worried about the safety of their riders, who they pay sometimes millions of euros. And if you have your whole team built around, let's say, one leader for the biggest race in the season, the Tour de France, and you lose that rider in a spring classic or in another race, like for example last year the Tour of the Basque Country, where we had this disaster of a crash, and you could say, well, it's the riders because they're going too fast, right? Or they're taking too much risks, or they don't brake enough. In the Basque Country, there was something on the road. There were like roots that were under the road growing, and it was super bumpy, and it could have been avoided. But the system needs to change, and there is this obsession of the UCI, and I've seen it in the past with other initiatives, not just about safety. As long as it's not the UCI who's completely in charge, it's completely, off the table. And until they don't take the charge, it's never going to fly. The teams could say, well, the teams could say, okay, safe R, whatever, but we'll do another safe R. We'll do a safe R B, another one. And let's come up with and let's see if this organization makes different recommendations. UCI won't listen. They'll try to sabotage it, which is what happened. If I understand correctly, because I read an interview with Plugge about this not so long ago, and he was very detailed. The team started it. They actually announced it, I think, just before the Tour of last year, 2 years ago. There was a press conference announcing the creation of Safe R. Together, Lapartien and Prudhomme, the director of ASO, was the director of the Tour de France, were sitting at the press conference. They announced it together. And then Lapartien and Prudhomme have talked, and they just cut out the teams. and took charge of it. Pretty sure that Prudhomme was also thinking, well, if this is an organization that teams have a lot of say in, we could be blamed for certain things. And if it's the UCI who has their say, we're going to get away with it. We may be warned about it, but it's never going to be public. It's and this is what happens now. SafeR, apparently they're doing a good job, but they are making too many compromises, I've been told. Whereas, there are situations that can be improved a lot.
The thing that's shocking is this, like what you said about the Basque Country. That's a little complex. You're like, well, then you'd have to. Yeah, it's understandable to me how that slips through the cracks. Like, should they have someone previewing the courses and saying, "Hey, this has roots and it's bumpy"? In a perfect world, yes. The speed bump feels so obvious.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But to come back on the Basque Country incident, I don't know who it was, but I think it's somebody from Visma who has actually voiced their concerns in the weeks before the Tour of the Basque Country that was dangerous there, and that that it's a downhill they've done already before. Races like the Tour of the Basque Country, somebody like a good rider who has ambition, they go and preview the courses. They scout the course. They ride it themselves because they want to know everything. And somebody has said, okay, this is dangerous. Something might happen there. I don't know why they didn't listen, or you could say, well, the riders are warned. Yeah, but when you get there with a peloton and you fought like crazy to be over that climb, you're gonna stay on the wheel. You're not gonna break. Even if you know that a dangerous corner is coming up, if the guy in front of you goes and you don't want to lose the wheel, you're going too. That's what I find. Lapertien has been criticizing a lot the riders' behavior in the races and make them responsible for crashes. You can clearly see that he makes those comments without any knowledge of what it is to be a professional cyclist. And what it is to be in the final of a race when you're fighting like crazy, you can't think straight, and your adrenaline takes over. That's why you need a recently retired professional to be in. I'm not going to even say advising. He kind of needs to be in charge. They need to listen to that guy, and they need to do what he says. They don't just need to take on his advice and then find a compromise. No, they need to listen to a guy who's been there and sees the dangers as they are.
I guess the problem is that would just be a pain in their butt, and there's no pressure to do it. Like there's not going to be any negative consequences. Like, why would you add that to
it's if you look at, when we finish this podcast, Spencer, do me a favor, go on the UCI website and look at the composition of the UCI management committee. Yeah. And count how many people are on that committee. These are the people who decide everything about cycling. Yeah. Count how many people look like they know how to ride a bike, like they have ever ridden a bike, and they know what they're talking about. It's political. It's pure political. They take on, they say, the riders are represented, the teams are represented. They're always represented in a minority. Any commission on the UCI, the majority is directly from the UCI. It's always at least half plus one is directly UCI. And then they take the riders' representatives and the teams and organizers, who in this case, organizers or Tour de France is in bed with the UCI. So it never works. It's a pure political game. And now that's why I think that this SafeR, the priority of SafeR, it's a political instrument to say, hey, look what we do for rider safety, but they don't do nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. The proof is in the speed bumps along the way.
Oh, yeah. And then the fences, the fences, that should be a standardized.
I know.
Okay. Yeah. These are the fences. This is the model. You cannot use these old-fashioned fences with the base that sticks out and stuff like that. It's a joke. It's a joke.
It's like the same fencing that you have when you're like a Cat 5.
Yeah.
A child's race.
Exactly.
And like that's the fencing from 20 years ago. They still have. It's crazy. But we could talk about this all day. We will talk about this as we get closer to the World Championships too. But to get into questions, again, info@wedo.team if you want to ask a question. First one, I'm cheating. This is from me, Johan. I've been meaning to ask you about this. Stage 4, Saudi Tour. If you remember, Tom Pidcock is away, riding to the win on that plateau. The group behind looks, someone mentioned to me, they look spun out. How fast were they going? I looked at their average speed. This is for the 5.5 minutes pursuing Pidcock. 30 miles an hour average. That's fast, but that's like, that's rolling along in pro cycling now. Like
but it was
first hour.
It was headwind.
30 miles an hour, pretty good. But like, first hour of a race will be 34 miles an hour. So that's not overly fast. Do you want to guess? I just picked a rider from this group. I'm not going to say their name. Do you want to guess their average cadence for that 5.5 minutes? You're not going to believe this number that I'm about to say.
90?
113 average. Wow. So my question is the cadence revolution out of control? Like at some point, do you need to just pop it down a few?
Yeah, that's just 130.
It's not even efficient.
That makes no sense. Who was it?
I don't know if I want to. Should we say their name? I don't want to. It was. I only picked this person because they were nice enough to upload their ride. It's Rainer Keplinger.
Okay.
But they all looked like they were pedaling about the same thing. It's like that's not an efficient cadence to be
especially in a group when you're taking turns. You can say, okay, well, I find the cadence. I'm alone. I need to make sure I can maintain it. You could say, around 100. You could say, okay, that makes sense. 130. That's a lot because that's a lot. Yeah.
It just makes me wonder if the short crank arm revolution's out of control. Like, do kids these days know how to?
Do they even all ride with shorter cranks? We don't know.
We don't know, but that was the talk of the winter. If you talk to pros, everyone, it's not as scientific as you think. Everyone's like, "Oh, Pogačar's cranks are short. Maybe I should get short cranks." Like people were chattering about it over the winter, but just something to keep an eye on. I just kind of wonder, like, are the cadence at some point, like we saw with Milan, like power is good. Just being able to torque out a massive wattage over the course of a whole day is not great. But when you have to reel someone in, it can help. Second question. This is from Carl in London, Johan's favorite city. I have a question about decisions professional cyclists make about where to base themselves, where they live, train, and how this fits into traveling to and from training camps, races, and training camps. Is transportation are the costs of transportation generally covered by World Tour teams so that their riders can travel to and from the races and training camps? And if so, do teams encourage their riders to live and train in a specific region to cut down on cost? For example, for Scandinavian riders to choose to live in their home countries, do they essentially have to pay their own way to get to races and training camps? It's like I have the same question, Johan. I've wondered about this a lot. I assume a lot of people base where they live on taxes, but I'm not sure
that's one thing, and then also on the weather, right? That's why a lot of people live in, for example, Girona. Girona's super popular. People who can afford to live in Monaco live in Nice, for example. Usually, you also want to be in a good climate, good training roads, and relatively close to an airport, right? Because you travel a lot, so that's if you travel the day before or 2 days before, you prefer to have a 30-minute drive than a 2.5-hour drive to the airport, because then you still have to start your journey, But to answer the question, the teams pay for the transport to and from the races and training camps. Usually, unless it has changed, but it hasn't, I think, the team would pay as soon as you leave your house. They give you whatever compensation for the transport to the airport. If you go by car, or you need to take a taxi or a train. and then the flights. The team arranges the flights, so the team organizes the flights and makes sure that everybody has their flight. So, and then whatever out of pocket expenses once you leave your house to the airport and then on the way back is covered by the teams. Should be covered by the teams. I know a few smaller teams that haven't respected that. I know one team in particular, for example, in Belgium, who's being sued by their riders because it's actually in the contracts. At least I know that in Belgian contracts, it is mandatory for the employer to pay their employees for their transport to their work. And that includes if you have to take a car,
I didn't know that.
Drive to the airport. And there's a fixed rate. It's in the law. It's nothing to do with cycling, in Belgium at least. So I know one team that's being sued by a bunch of riders who have left that team. And even it's in their contracts. I've seen the contract myself, and it's black and white. It's in there, and they refuse to pay.
What happens if a rider has a private jet? I assume the team's not paying.
No. That's I think the team will pay the cost. I mean, they will pay the cost of a ticket.
What class of service we talking?
It depends. There's certain riders who have negotiated contracts that they should fly business class. I don't know. But if a rider decides to take a private jet, that comes out of his pocket.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird. The whole team has to take a private jet. I can't figure it out. I mean, I would say my 2 cents. I feel like Nice is it's I guess old hat, but man, I think that place is underrated.
Nice is amazing. I mean, for training, it's amazing.
Yeah, if I was a pro. That's
great airport. International airport. Yeah.
Easy train to the airport. And if you're American, you have no benefit of living in Monaco. You can tell who makes a lot of money because they live in Monaco because it makes sense for them to pay whatever they have to pay for a tiny apartment to save on the taxes. But Americans can't benefit from that.
Well, I mean, look, Matteo Jorgensen doesn't live in Monaco. He lives in Nice.
Yeah, Nice. Same with Riccatello as well. Has an apartment in Nice. But it's a great place. That's where I would live. Good weather. Good roads. I think that's the most important thing probably is weather, roads, and can you feasibly fly out of there? Yeah. And that's like Andorra, I guess, is the downside is there's no airport. You'd have to go to Barcelona.
Andorra is a pain. It's like the road from Andorra to Barcelona, which is the closest airport, like public airport, is a nightmare. There's a small airport just at the outside of Andorra, La Seu d'Urgell. Private planes fly from there a lot. So sometimes I don't know. I don't know if sometimes some guys, put some money together and they whatever. I mean, they charter a little jet, but you can't do that every week.
No, and at some point you're spending so much money on jets that you're offsetting the benefit of living there. I guess Andorra does have altitude, but
I mean, Andorra is a lot cheaper than Monaco to live.
Yeah.
Now the weather, forget about it. It's compared to Monaco, it's not good. And especially in the preparation time of the season is where you have to do a lot of miles, because once the season starts, it doesn't really matter that much, because you're either at races or at a training camp. And you spend very limited amount of time at home in the off season. That's when it matters. And Andorra must be extremely beneficial tax-wise and compared to the cost of living, because for training in the off season, it's not a great place. It's cold. Also, it's dark. It's it's in between 3 mountains. You're in a hole.
Yeah, you're trapped in a hole. I mean, presumably you're not spending every waking hour on the bike too. So like what you do off the bike is probably important. That's for like Nice versus Andorra. You can live a nice life.
There's not that much time, if you're a top professional rider. I think what's also important, I think, is especially with, riders who have families, their wives, they have small kids. there's little communities amongst the cycling families. The wives have their little groups, the children know each other. It's like mini communities, right? Because that's important also. If you're a cyclist and you're gone, you know that, your wife is not going to be bored at home because she has other people to go out with and to do things when the kids are at school.
That kind of reminds me, the more interesting thing is when you see someone like Jonas Vingegaard. I think he lives in Denmark, right? Like
No.
he is not. He doesn't.
He lives in Annecy.
In Annecy,
in
I
France.
did not know that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So his kids go to school in France.
I know he has a big house there, so I would assume that's his main residence.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Annecy. All right. Well, I want to know more about that. What's going on? Like, what's the weather in Annecy like right now? It's probably decent, right? Because it's not.
It's okay.
So
yeah. I mean, like from now on, it's fine. The winter's not great, but they're in Mallorca or in Calpe or on the Teide or.
That's true. And man, can you imagine? I cannot imagine having a family and being like, I'm going to go.
It's hard.
To Tenerife. Yeah.
It's hard.
4 weeks.
It's really hard. Yeah.
That would be hard. Well, Johan, we'll let you go. And we have a lot of racing action. Like we're going to be following the UAE Tour. We'll be back on Friday to get back on our normal schedule. So we will update people on what happens in the races then. Thank you for joining us. Do you have anything else to add before you go?
Okay, that's it. How's your riding going, Spencer?
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the weather, it is like -10 Celsius where I am and snowy.
I see you're doing a lot of miles on Zwift, so I
am on the Zwift. Yeah,
I'm quite a bit behind already now, so I need to get my stuff together.
I am planning in. There will be parts of the year where you're rapidly catching me, so I have to build a buffer before we get to those parts. when you're doing your 70-kilometer rides every morning, I've got to have a nice buffer before that starts.
I'll do 100 tomorrow. So
see, that's going to ding me. That's going to hurt my lead.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Johan, and we will talk soon.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.